Hey, gang, on today's episode, Greg Dickerson joins me with Dickerson International. Here's a guy that has done some amazing things in real estate and business and entrepreneurship. Didn't have a college degree, went through the Navy, came out of Navy, went through the school of sort of not hard knocks, but learning on your own self education, devoured books, devoured tapes, devoured seminars, and grew a company from his first company from zero to $30 million in 7 years and sold it in the real estate world, parlayed that into 12 other companies, ultimately over $250 million. Done some amazing things in real estate and real estate investment, some amazing things in terms of coaching and leadership and mentoring he's done. Strap on your seatbelt. It's going to be a fast ride. Greg is full of energy and he's got a lot to give and a lot to give back. So you don't want to miss a second of this show. Hey, welcome to the show today, listeners. I have the great, distinct honor and privilege of having Greg Dickerson on the show. Greg has been super successful in real estate. He's a serial entrepreneur, real estate developer, and mentor to high-level investors and entrepreneurs. Starting from nothing, he's bought, developed, and sold over $250 million in real estate, built and renovated hundreds of custom homes and commercial buildings, developed residential and mixed-use subdivisions, and started, scaled, and exited more than a dozen companies. Greg currently mentors some of the top entrepreneurs and real estate investors and developers around the world, helping them start, grow, and to scale their business, to raise more capital and do bigger deals. Greg's current clients have over $2 billion in deals in process. So Greg's got a lot going on. I'm excited to have him on the show today. Greg, welcome to the Brick Mortar Money Show, the what we call the business owner's path to wealth through property ownership. Excited to have you on here today.
Hey, Paul, thanks for having me. Yeah, I love the title and the mission.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm excited to dig into your background before we get into what you're doing today and how you're helping to advance the cause and mission yourself. Tell us a little about it. I mean, from zero to 250 million in real estate and all the other things. What happened? What's your story, man?
Yeah, and so that was just me, my own money, no investors. I did that all on my own over the years. I've been doing this about 30 years. The bulk of that came in the first 7 years. So in addition to that, my first main company, I started with zero, started from scratch, no money, no investors, nobody in my family are entrepreneurs. I went in the Navy right out of high school. I did not go to college, but I'm very highly self-educated, so I poured into myself. But my journey started with building businesses to generate cash flow to invest in other assets, real estate. So, before I even knew anything about the stock market, and I got into that 08, 09 at the bottom. So I've been doing both ever since. And then I've done hundreds of millions with investor capital and joint ventures, and hundreds of millions in equity capital, buying companies, taking over companies, scaling them, exiting them. But that first initial 250 million, that was just me, my own money, going to the banks on my own, using the cash flow from my companies to compound into the real estate investment. So started in 1997. I was on the Outer Banks of North Carolina, which is a little barrier island off the coast of North Carolina. Most people would know it where the Wright brothers took off, Kitty Hawk, Kill Devil Hills area. Started a little remodeling handyman company with, again, no money, just me, my truck and tools. Did 250,000 in revenues my first year. 7 years later, we were one of the largest builder developers in the area, doing about 30 million a year. And that was my first big exit. I exited that company. But along the way, I started a dozen other different businesses, mostly ancillary to the real estate construction industry. So I had a building company, a real estate company, real estate brokerage company. I had a pool spa landscaping company, hurricane shutter company, electrical company, plumbing company, painting company, etc. Those types of things. I had some restaurants, retail. I had a pool, cheerleading, trampoline, gymnastics program. So it was gymnastics, cheerleading, and trampoline school, very high level, junior Olympic kind of level coaching. Mostly that was a community passion project. I did ultimately turn it over and take it nonprofit, but that was a lot of fun. Started that one from about 70 members in a very small demographic area, built it into over 300 members in about 6 months, and then ultimately took it nonprofit. That's kind of my long story short. Started that first company, built all those other businesses, and the whole purpose, the whole goal of doing everything I did was I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and out of that book, I didn't get real estate. I didn't get I want to be Kim and Robert Kiyosaki and Kim. What I got out of reading Rich Dad Poor Dad was I wanted to be Rich Dad. I wanted to be the guy that had all of the companies, that had everybody coming to him with deals and opportunities. He was coaching and mentoring everybody else, which is what I am and what I've been my entire entrepreneurial journey. I'm no expert at any one thing. What I'm an expert at is finding great talent and coaching those people to success. That's what I've done in all my businesses, all my companies. And that's what I saw in Rich Dad, coaching Robert and his friend and teaching them how to become entrepreneurs. But the biggest takeaway was build businesses that generate cash flow to invest in other assets. So that's what I did. And I did that, really went after it that first, 7 years from 0 to 30 million, from 0 to 250 million. And then I've done, compounded it all from there. Like I said, got in the markets at the bottom of, 08 and 9. But here's the biggest thing. During that 7 year journey, I had kids, they were young. I coached every one of their sports. I was there for every single event in their schools. We took 4 weeks off a year on vacations, usually spring break, a couple of weeks at Christmas, and then another, long weekends here or there. I was home every night for dinner, took weekends off. And I was, I had people in all of my businesses. So I was a leader, delegator, motivator. So during all that time, I was also, volunteer at my church, taught Sunday school, church leader on the board, chairman of the trustees. I was on the board of several nonprofits, the recreation, Parks and Recreation, Education Foundation, Babe Ruth softball. I had all girls, so coached them, all year round. Again, coached all their sports. I was a chairman of the Home Builder Association on the Outer Banks, president of the Remodeling Council. All of that while I was building all of these companies, doing all the things I did, and still was able to live life on my terms, do what I wanted to do, home every single night, had weekends off, took 4 weeks of vacation, and never missed one thing for any of my kids' events, throughout their growing up years.
Which was clearly a priority of yours, right? I mean, because you had to define that before you went into this, because many entrepreneurs and business owners, they become the e-myth. They think they're an entrepreneur, but they're really a technician, and they go into business for themselves, and they lose track of why they went into business, and literally the business owns them, and they just trade time for dollars. But you had this
They
vision
work in the
clearly up front.
business. Yeah, exactly. They work in the business instead of on it. And I was very fortunate to learn. Again, I wanted to be Rich Dad. What did he do? He coached everybody. He wasn't in any one business. He had people in all of his businesses. So really, the power of books, right? So and also I was very fortunate. So after the Navy, I did two things. I worked in restaurants and I worked in construction. So I always had a little construction business on the side. I learned the construction business I was working in a restaurant, and there was a guy putting an addition on the restaurant I was working in, and he saw that I was a hard worker, and he said, "Hey, I'll pay you cash. You come clean up after me." So he was knocking down the wall, and I was like, loading the block into a wheelbarrow and into the dumpster, and like I said, I'm a hard worker, so he asked me to help him on some other jobs. So I started learning from him. Eventually, I was able to kind of parlay that into doing little handyman stuff, little small things. But I also worked in restaurants. And after the Navy, I worked with Lone Star Steakhouses. And Lone Star was very good in terms of teaching you how to become a leader, delegator, motivator, how to manage people, how to, run systems, operations, people, operations, profit, all about leveraging, other people's time and talents, leveraging systems and focusing on operations. You take care of the details, you take care of the, corners, and the floors will take care of themselves, right? Mm-hmm. So that's where I received the best business training I've ever had in my life, was from that company. And we had some very foundational books we had to read that was our management philosophy and the culture of the company. It was the 1 Minute Manager series of books. Mm-hmm. So on top of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I read Think and Grow Rich. I read How to Win Friends and Influence People. I read The Power of Positive Thinking, Norman Vincent Peale. Mm-hmm. Obviously Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. And then I had these other books. It was the 1 Minute Manager series of books. There was 3 books in the series. There was Managing by Harold Janine. He was the CEO of ITT, the first multi-billion-dollar, multi-international conglomerate. And then we read High Output Management from Andrew Grove. So these were all the books before the E-Myth and all that stuff. And of course, I read the E-Myth and all of those things. So I was very fortunate at a very young age, early in my career, before I started all my companies, to understand how to lead, delegate, motivate, how to focus on operations, how to put systems in place. So that's what I did. So the systems, the people ran the systems that ran the business that were working with me. And that's a key right there. So the biggest thing that I do and that I teach and the way I operated was normally in the corporate structure, you have the pyramid, right? So you have the CEO and you have the presidents and the vice presidents. And, and I had all that. I had presidents, vice presidents. I had a CFO. I had 20 people in my organization at the executive level that ran all of my companies at the time. But I flipped that pyramid upside down. I was at the bottom. I was not at the top. Yep. I was at the bottom serving up.
Yeah.
So as a leader, your job is to give everybody in the organization everything they need to be successful: tools, training, systems, and support,
Hmm.
clear direction, and know in certain terms exactly what's expected and when, and then you hold them accountable to the goals. So we all work together. And my job was to give the organization what they needed to be successful so that they could in turn build better businesses without me.
Hmm.
And the true mark of a great leader is how well does your organization run without you, not with you. And that's why I keep driving home. I did all of this while I was able to spend time with my family,
Hmm.
live life on my terms, and do all of those things, because that's ultimately where it's at. A true entrepreneur is somebody who creates value in the marketplace, empowers others to be successful, and isn't like absorbed or focused on one single thing. And I know in this day and age, especially with younger people, there's this whole hustle culture, right, where you got to get out there and you got to hustle and work 24/7 and do this and that. You need to hustle. You need to be focused. You need to be disciplined. You need to be determined, and you need to outwork everybody else. But it doesn't mean 24/7, and it
Hmm.
doesn't need to mean you need to be obsessive or compulsive or a workaholic. It just means you need to be smart, efficient, and you need to leverage the time, tools, and assets of other systems and other people to be successful. So that's why I drive that home all the time.
Yeah, yeah, wow. This is an education. Just listening to you talk, and so many things come to mind. I mean, the idea of servant leadership and accountability and putting others first. The idea of Dan Sullivan's who not how concept. You have limited ability on yourself, but if you can empower others to do, to be successful in whatever system you've developed, and then help them improve the systems right over time, and leveraging that. I mean, so you read a lot of books, and obviously you said you started in the Navy, you didn't go to college, so that was probably an advantage for you that you didn't go to college. And you went after self education, but I mean, it's somewhere along the line. Where did this click for you? I mean, because it's a concept that so many entrepreneurs take. It takes years and years and years to get to the point where you finally realize, oh, that's right, I'm building a business. That's the whole idea. Is this business is the product that I'm not the product. I'm not selling a product. The business itself is a product, and it shouldn't be dependent upon how much time I put in or how much time I don't put in.
Yeah, so yeah, exactly. You want to build, equity, and equity comes in a lot of different forms. It comes in, the traditional forms of multiples of your revenue, EBITDA, right? It also comes in brand, and that's where the biggest takeaway from this could be for a lot of people. You want to build brand equity. So, I read guerrilla marketing as well. So yeah, even though I didn't go to college, I did retail in the Navy, so I learned a little bit about business in the Navy. I had that training at Lone Star Steakhouses, so I learned a lot about business and operating systems there. And then I read a lot of books on branding and marketing, and old school days, back before the internet, back
Mm-hmm.
before all of that. And how do you build a brand? Well, you got to get it out there. And it all started with that first company. I wanted to build a brand and a business that succeeded me, that didn't rely on me, that could be sold. So every venture that you enter into needs to have an exit strategy, right? We're all going to exit. None of us are going to live forever, right? Ain't nobody
Right.
getting out here alive. So every business you build, you're going to exit. So you don't want to build that business, based on you and your name and your brand. You want to build that business where you can develop brand equity. Coca-Cola, Pepsi, you just think of all the biggest, Apple, Google, Facebook, Meta, whatever. They made a mistake there. I would have never done
Yeah.
that. I would have always kept it Facebook. But anyways, he's a billionaire. What do I know, right? So been very successful there. So you always want to think with the end in mind. Whenever you start a venture, whether it's real estate, multiple exits, you want to be able to sell, lease, refinance, pull your equity out, owner finance, lease option, rent own. You always want to have multiple exits because you never know when that environment's going to change and the values are going to change. When you build a company, always start that company with, what kind of brand do I want to build? How do I want to exit this? And what do I want this, to look like after I'm gone? And you start there, and then it, takes on that shape. So again, highly self-educated. I constantly poured into myself. So back in the day, it was, eight or cassette tapes, the
Yeah.
Sony Walkman,
Yeah.
books on tape. That's all I had, books on tape, in sales, business operations, motivation, all that stuff, Tony Robbins, all his stuff, Zig Ziglar. I mean, thousands and thousands and thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of hours. I don't even know,
Yeah.
over the last 30 years that I've just been pouring into myself all of this information, all starting with the 1 Minute Manager and those foundational books that I mentioned. That's where I learned the power of reading a book and what it could do but it's more than just reading it and
Mm.
taking in the information.
Yeah.
You've got to put it into action and do something with it. And all of the stuff you mentioned, traction, EOS, uh, high, all of these different things, they all come back to those foundational books that I mentioned. That's where all that information comes from. It's just repackaged.
Yeah.
And what a lot of the new stuff misses is the leadership and management of the human capital aspect. But back to the brand thing and the education. So, went from cassette tapes, the Sony Walkman, to the CD player, to the 80 gig iPod. I still have the 80 gig iPod, the original 80
Hmm.
gig iPod,
With a hard
nothing but
drive in
books
it,
on
right?
tape. Nope. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I had
No
that.
music, just nothing but books on tape in that. So every second I have driving around wherever I was, out exercising, I walk, at least a half hour to hour every day, always have, staying active and fit. I was always pouring that stuff
Hmm.
into my head. I was never just mindlessly listening to music. Now I listen to music occasionally, but mostly, if I had a minute, I was educating myself, pouring into myself, reading, constantly learning, going to seminars. And then I brought consultants and experts into my companies,
Hmm.
to train and lead, in all my companies, personality profiling, the one minute manager system, all of these things I would bring in and pay these experts, to manage the companies. But the way I built the brand initially, identified a problem when I started this first company as a remodeling company. I bought a house. I was trying to get some work done. Nobody would return my phone call. So where there's a problem, there's an opportunity. So I started this little remodeling handyman company just to do, the little things that nobody will return your
Sure.
call for.
Sure.
But I always had that end in mind. I said, what kind of company do I want to build? I want to build something that sounds like it's been here forever, so that I had instant, brand equity,
Right.
sounding like I'd been there forever because I just moved there. Um, so I came up with Outer Banks Construction, and I don't want to limit myself to just remodeling because I knew eventually I might want to build this thing. So I said, okay, nobody has the name Outer Banks Construction. I couldn't believe it. So I went, registered the name,
On
got
the
the
Outer
trademark. This
Banks,
is
right?
back, yeah, I was on the Outer Banks. Nobody, I mean, there was Outer Banks
Yeah.
everything, but no
Right.
Outer Banks Construction.
Right.
Made me sound like I've been there for years, instantly. Instant credibility in the marketplace, even though I'd only been there a few months. So I went and registered the name because back then, again, there was no Google, there was no .coms. This was before computers and all that stuff were
Mm.
really a thing.
Right.
This was 1997. I didn't even send my first email till 2001. I didn't get my first smartphone until 2011, right? And I'm very good with technology, very, very sophisticated with technology. But anyways, I said, okay, I want this to sound like I've been there forever, and I wanted to be able to capture the market and not limit myself. So I didn't call it remodeling. I didn't call it handyman. I called it construction because I
Mm.
wanted to be a builder. That's what I knew. So that opened us up, to everything. We ended up doing all kinds of residential, commercial, multi-million-dollar beach houses, and tearing down hotels and rebuilding them. It started with flipping a couple little houses to buying hotels and building multi-million-dollar beach houses, and I started doing commercial and multifamily, industrial. I did land development. All in that Outer Banks, North Carolina to Virginia region. It's kind of been my territory over the last 30 years. And then ultimately, when I sold my building company, I just became a developer where I would hire builders, to do the actual vertical for me, and just leverage, the time and talents of others instead of self-performing. So that's kind of how it all evolved. But yeah, the key takeaway is begin with the end in mind. Whatever you're setting out to do, think of a brand that can build equity just in the brand alone, in the name, long after you, and then you have multiple exit opportunities as you go along.
Well, along those lines, so you talk about like beginning with the end in mind, and as you go out and you're building, like you're starting with the first opportunity. You're like, okay, here's a handyman opportunity, but then now I want to ultimately I want to do construction. I mean, I imagine that at the early phases of this journey, you didn't see doing necessarily hotels and larger industrial buildings and that sort of thing, but it's something that was a progressive thing. I get the sense that as you had some success and a taste, you kept expanding that vision, right? To say, hey, we want to make this bigger and bigger and bigger to improve the brand and strengthen the brand. Because you have a lot of people, we have a lot of investors that are just getting started. They have a hard time seeing that far, but you and I both know that it's a journey, it's a process. We don't have. I mean, most of us don't. We're not born thinking, okay, I'm going to be flying a Learjet. And we have the pictures on the wall, right? But it takes a little while to kind of get there. So what was that like for you in the journey? Was it a kind of a progressive thing that you had one success, like, okay, I can see a little bigger, and then now you're surrounding yourself with other people that are opening doors and opportunities, and of course all the books you're reading and the people you're associating with are expanding your vision as well. So it's kind of a feedback loop that kind of grows over time, right? Sort of upward towards that end vision.
So I always had the vision. So, let's go back. So I'm two things. I'm a natural born entrepreneur. So I started out as a young age. I was very fortunate. Again, we didn't have a lot of money. My dad was military, career military. He went in enlisted, came out an officer. So he's a hard worker. He was a
Mm,
leader. So I kind of picked up on some of that from him. But um, he wouldn't give me anything as a kid. If I wanted something, he said, well, you need to go figure out how to make the money to get it.
mm,
So I learned very early, if I want something, I need
mm.
to figure out a way to create value in the marketplace so I could get the money to get what I wanted. And like I wanted to take karate. He said, hey, go earn the money and pay for your karate lessons. So those were the lessons I learned. And I would use his lawnmower. I'd go around, knock on your door. Hey, my name's Greg. I live down the street. I need to make some money. I want to take karate lessons. What do you need done? I'll cut your grass. I'll rake your grass. Wash your car. I'll babysit your kids. I don't care. I need to make some money.
Right.
So that was me. I was not afraid to knock on doors, and I was not afraid to ask for what I needed, but I provided value first in exchange
Sure.
for that. So I learned that at a young age. And I even had to pay my dad for the gas for his lawnmower, had to clean it. If I used his stuff, I had to pay him a percentage of what I made to cover those costs. If I drove his car when I was young, I had to bring it back with a full tank of gas and clean and wash, and somehow it was always
God
on
bless
empty on
him.
Friday when I needed it, right? Yeah, it was always dirty and empty on Friday when I needed it. And I had to
Imagine
bring
that,
it back
right?
on Sunday. You had a full tank going into the week, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah,
anyways, valuable lessons.
yeah.
The other thing, that I learned at a young age. So I always played with erector sets and Tinker toys. If
Mm.
you remember those,
Yeah.
back in the day, I'm 56. So, those were the things. So I loved building things. I loved, creating and building. And I always wanted to be a builder. I always wanted to build buildings, right? That was a vision that I had. I just didn't know how to do it.
Right.
I didn't know how to do it. I didn't have the means. I didn't have the education, those types of things. So when I started out in remodeling, the goal was to ultimately be a builder and build buildings, but I didn't know how to do it. So I figured, okay, I'll start with this. It's easy. I know how to do little things.
Hmm.
And I'm not a craftsman. I'm not skilled at all, but I can fix stuff. So I started out like repairing door locks and putting a screen on and building little decks.
Hmm.
I mean, whatever I could do. And as the company grew, initially, that's all we focused on was remodeling because nobody else did. Other people were building houses and they didn't have time for the little jobs. So a lot of my work came from the other builders that
Right.
didn't have time to do the little stuff. So I started out doing that. And then as the company grew and as I learned more and more, ultimately got my general contracting license, I realized that the bigger dollars were in the bigger structures. So again, I didn't know how to build a house before I started building multi-million-dollar beach houses. So what did I do? I went and hired some of the best people from the best, biggest companies in the area that have been there 20 years,
Mm.
building the types of houses and buildings I wanted to build. So I went and recruited them to come to work with me and build this company together. And then same thing when I got into commercial, I didn't know how to do it. So I hired somebody who knew how to do commercial construction. I brought them in to work with me to build a company doing commercial construction, on and on. Same thing with all of the other different companies. I mean, I'm not a painter, I'm not an electrician, I'm not a plumber, HVAC. I don't do all those things. These were either opportunities that came to me asking me for help, people that worked for us as an
Mm.
organization doing our subcontract work, like my plumber. He was one guy, it was him and another guy. They had two trucks and he was going bankrupt and about to leave the area. And this was back in 2000, 99, 2000 timeframe.
Hmm.
And it was very difficult to get somebody to do your work because everybody was so busy.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, where there's a problem, there's an opportunity. And his name was Bob. I said, hey, Bob, I'll tell you what, I'll buy the company, I'll pay off all your debts, and we'll build this thing together, but you prioritize our work. So that's what we did. And I went and I took him over instantly, went out and bought 8 trucks. So we took him from 2 trucks to 8. There was another big plumbing company that was imploding and going out of business. So I immediately hired an administrator for him, an office manager slash bookkeeper slash,
Mm.
personal, professional, administrative assistant slash. That was my first key hire too. Initially, it was just me, my truck and tools. My first key hire
Ah.
was that office manager, bookkeeper,
Mm.
administrative assistant, executive assistant slash. And she ended up working for me and with me, for the entire time until I exited that company. And she ran all of my businesses. One person kept the books and ran all of that stuff for me for all my businesses and all my real estate deals and all that. Of course, we had a CFO and we had an
Mhm.
accountant outside the firm as well. So, anyways, we put that person in position with him, hired supervisors, and grew him, and he became the largest plumbing company. Went from doing a couple 100,000 a year to over $1 million a year in a matter of months.
Wow.
From me coming in, taking him
Hmm.
over, blowing him up. How did we create the brand? So this was back before the internet, back
Mm.
before Facebook ads and social media ads and all that. So what I did was when I wanted to build my company, and build his company, we took out full page ads in the phone book. That's back when people
Mm.
actually used a phone
I
book.
remember those
And
days.
yeah, and full page ads in the newspapers. People thought I was nuts. I spent a ton of money in the phone book and the newspapers. It ultimately turned into, one of the best investments you could ever make because it put us out there on the map
Mm.
and instantly generated all kinds of business. And then again, just like a little kid knocking on doors, I told you all of my work as a remodeling contractor came from other builders. I went to the meetings where they were and said, "Hey, all I do is remodeling. If you have anybody you can't get to, send them to me."
Mm.
And I didn't even pay referral fees or anything. They were just happy to have a resource
Right.
to refer their customers to. Same thing in the plumbing. I leveraged all those relationships and said, "Hey, I got a plumbing company. We'll prioritize your work." And same thing with all these other businesses. So again, I just had people. My pool spa landscaping company was the guy that sold me pools.
Mm.
He came to me and said, "Hey, I always wanted to start my own business." He was a manager for this pool company.
Right.
He said, "But I don't have any money. I don't know how to do it." He said, well, if you'll help me, we can start this business and you can buy all these pools at cost. I was putting in 30, 40 pools a year and hot tubs, in all my houses. And he said, "You can get them all at cost and, make some extra profit. I'll run everything. You just, show me how to do it and you provide the capital." So that's what we did. And again, I came up with a brand
Mm-hmm.
for that company that's still there to this day operating. This was, I don't know, probably 15 years ago now that we started that company, maybe 20. I can't remember now. What is this, 2024? That was, it was about 20 years. 0304 is when we started that company. Time flies, man. And so I created the brand.
Yeah.
And the problem, again, we solved a problem. Builders had to hire a pool contractor, had to get a separate vendor for a spa, hot tub,
Mm-hmm.
had to hire somebody separately for landscaping, had to hire a different sub to put in the concrete deck and the fence. We packaged it all up, one phone call for a builder.
Mm.
Pool, spa, landscaping, did it all, installation and maintenance, and built that into a huge company. And, it's still down there operating, to this day. So, that's kind of how things worked and how I progressed. And the opportunities came to me because, again, I was rich dad. People knew I was successful. They knew that I was somebody you could come to, for help or, to do something with. And I didn't do something with everybody who came.
Sure.
Not everybody was right for it, but I was good at understanding who's the right person. And it usually started with somebody coming to me, first that already been kind of successful somewhere else and or
Mm.
had an idea or a vision. And they came to me and said, "Hey, I want to do this thing." They took the initiative and showed me that they had what it took to be successful. And then others, as I grew my businesses, I would pluck them from other companies where they were successful. I would recruit them to come
Mm.
work with me and build the company. And I did that in all of my companies.
Which, because of the brand that you had and success, obviously you were a very attractive place for these top producers to want to come join your team, be a part of your organization that you're developing. So so sort of winding down now. So what are you doing today, Greg, to help for yourself, for your business, for your enterprises? And obviously you've been intimately involved with people and coaching and mentoring the whole time. And this is really your secret sauce. So how are you helping people today? I mean, what's your focus?
Yeah. So, now I do, people started approaching me about 3 or 4 years ago, wanting me to coach them.
Mm.
I've been on a couple of podcasts and things, and they asked me, "Hey, would you coach me?" I'm like, "Well, I don't really do that. I've done that in businesses." And they're like, "No, I just need somebody to coach me in my business." And it was, a lot of real estate, some of them just growing companies. So now I'm kind of in my giving back stage. I've done all these different things. I've got all this
Mm.
experience. So now, I don't know, I've had about 100 people come through my system over the last 3 or 4 years, and I'm coaching all around the world, doing all kinds of things, teach them how to be real estate developers, teach them how to, grow and scale their real estate. Could be syndicators. I've got people that started with nothing and, help them, do their first 100 million in, multifamily deals or commercial or whatever it is. I've got people I've taken from 100 million to a billion, assets under management. I've got people that I'm helping them scale their companies and do roll ups, for an exit. All kinds of different things. Teaching people how to raise capital, how to build companies like I did, how to recruit, train, hire, lead, delegate, motivate. How to implement systems. Put systems in place, but take action and implement those systems. And how to kind of do what I did. So that's kind of the stage I'm in my life, and why I created the courses that I have and the coaching programs is that's my school of entrepreneurship, to kind of give back, and do what I love. I love coaching. I love building. I love building things, but the most important thing, what tickled me more than anything else, I love building people. I
Mm.
love helping other people achieve the dreams and the visions and the goals that they had in their mind. Like the plumber that came to me, he was broke, he was bankrupt, he was about ready to give up, leave, pack up, and go back to West Virginia where he came from,
Mm.
and never owned a house. Never had really done any more than a couple of trucks, and he was doing okay. And by me helping him, he was able to buy his first home. He was able to, build his life, and just, send his kids, to the schools he wanted to and take the vacations he wanted to take and all these different things. So helping people change their lives and their families' lives and reach their goals. But more importantly, everybody I work with, the number one thing I hear from is I would never have been able to, you know, give back in the way I do if it wasn't for you. Like it could be,
Mm.
a ministry thing, it could be a community, nonprofit, it could be whatever it is. Everybody has these projects that they want to support, these things that they want to do. People want to help other people. They want to give back. You have to put yourself in a position to be able to give back. And to me, that's impact. So what I'm after the rest of my life, and I've kind of done it being on boards and nonprofits and, helping in the communities. I've always been, a big, supporter and advocate for community organizations, both, in the nonprofit world, in the faith-based world, and, as multiple sports organizations for kids, things like that. I've always been very passionate about kids and youth sports, so being able to help people impact their world and that
Mm.
butterfly effect that goes out there, right? We're only here
Right.
for a very short time.
Yes.
You can spend your entire time on this planet, on this earth, in this life, whatever you believe, you're getting one life. You can spend all that time consuming and, selfishly consuming, everything that you've done. That doesn't fill most people, and it gets boring, it
Right.
gets dull. But when you pour into other people and you see the impact and you see them flourish and you see them be successful and you see that sparkle in their eye when they finally reach the goals that they're trying to reach, to me that is the most exciting thing than any deal you can ever do. I've done all kinds of deals, all kinds of businesses, made a ton of money. It's fun and it's exciting and all that, but nothing is more exciting or inspiring than helping somebody else figure out why God put them on this earth and helping them live that out and impact their world. So that's why I do what I do. There's just nothing else that can match that feeling.
Well, that's a great mission. I agree 110%. I think that's, as Maslow would put it in the secular world, right? The hierarchy of needs. As we move up, we have purpose and we want to help others. And you also said you can't do it if you don't have, you didn't say specifically the resources, but you have to have the resources of time, of money, of influence. The more you have, the more you can help. And what an exciting opportunity! What to be able to do what you've done, and then now leverage it to multiply, as you say, the butterfly effect through other people. So now you're multiplying your charitable endeavors through other people who are multiplying it out and leveraging it, and it's just that's an impact in a huge way. Greg, how does someone get up with you if they're interested in coaching, they want to be mentored, they want to be part of what you're doing, or at least learn more about Dickerson International and all that you're a part of and all that you have?
Yeah, so just go to my website, gregdickerson.com, dickersoninternational.com. Both of those lead you there, but the easiest one to remember is gregdickerson.com. And everything's there. I've got a YouTube channel with thousands of videos, all different types of real estate and entrepreneurship, different playlists that'll take you, teach you how to do what I've done. I've got courses if you want to take it to the next level. And then, yeah, if you're looking to really, achieve that level of success and really impact your world, then I do one-on-one coaching and mentorship. And, I've got people all around the world that are just knocking it out of the park and killing it. And all their testimonials are on the website in terms of, what they've been able to achieve, but more importantly, how they've been able to give back. That's what's really cool.
Wow, that's fantastic. Greg, that's exciting. So, all right, so we go to gregdickerson.com. We'll get that in the show notes. We've got your YouTube channel. We can start at courses, or if we want to go to the top level, we can engage you for some coaching or mentorship and just really get the one-on-one treatment. So, Greg, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciated this. Learned a lot, and exciting to hear a lot about your roots in the Navy and the Outer Banks. I'm kind of in that area too from my background. It's just exciting to kind of cross paths like that. So once again, I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Paul. Enjoyed the time, and hope to see you again.
Hey, gang, just winding down here today. Thanks for listening to the show. And as always, if you need capital to grow your business, you're looking to purchase commercial real estate or build a building or invest in commercial real estate, or you're looking to acquire a business or a competitor, or just need growth capital, we'd love to talk to you. We fund businesses all day long. Our mission is to help entrepreneurs win and to fund their businesses and fund their dreams so that they can make an impact in their community. Reach out to me today. Go to our website, click the button to schedule a 20-minute conversation, discovery call. We'll have a quick conversation, see if there's a need, see if there's a fit, and we can take it from there. The website is VPC, Victor Paul Charlie .capital. That's VPC.capital. All right, there's no .com on that. It's VPC.capital. As always, keep crushing it and hope to see you soon around here. Take care.